Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of HomeKit Insider. You've got me as always, Andrew O'Hara. Joining me this week is Wes Hilliard, back again to talk about everything smart home. We got lights. We got there's a lot of robot vacuum talk today, so precursor there. And then we got a quick hands-on to end out the show. So Wes, how you doing this week? You ready to get into all this?
Pretty good. Podcast tip for everyone. I discovered that if you can't get continuity camera to work, just plug in your iPhone and ta-da, it works. So we're back with a nice and crisp feed this week. So if you're on YouTube, you'll see a nice increase. But now we have another issue. I'm red. I don't know why. I blame the brown walls, but that's something we'll fix later. But I'm not going to keep Andrew up any longer trying to fix my red face. So there you go.
You know, since you mentioned the YouTube channel, I did want to mention something really quick because I know I had seen a few comments about it, and there's a lot of people talking about why we're not cutting to B-roll on the video podcast side of things.
Really hard.
And
it's a lot of work.
The simple answer is I'm not editing it. Mm-hmm. We got to keep the production as quick as we can. Unfortunately, at least for right now, we're trying to kind of move things along. You know, we're working on editing, improving the audio and everything, and getting into taking the video file that's an hour long, going through the episode and trying to jump to things. It ends up being kind of a lot. Personally, I want to be able to do what Steven was doing before and be able to like share my screen and that kind of stuff. And that'll make it a little bit easier. And there's no extra post-production work to add in images and B-roll of stuff. I mean, heck, why do we even need that? Because Wes just pulls things up on his iPad or something, shows me the camera half the time.
I forgot to grab my iPad today. But I will
that
speak.
Is the simplest answer.
Yeah, I will speak for Andrew on this one. He already spends a lot of time, days, weekends doing production work for Apple Insider. So having him spend another couple of hours, because an hour worth of video, we're talking about hours of editing. It's not as simple as just, it's an hour video, so it takes an hour to edit. No, you're multiplying that. You're going through, you're splicing it, you're finding the right footage, even if it's a still image for 30 seconds, that's still time you have to take to do it. And every single time you have to do that, it adds up very quickly. So, and as far as this podcast goes, we got a good audience. We like our audience, but it is relatively smaller. And when Steven left, it was actually in danger of this whole thing just going poof. So we are working with the time constraints and the budget that we have to create the show for you guys. We don't want it to go away. And yes, maybe some things might have slid backwards a little bit. You know, we've been working on getting the audio to be better, and I think that's been resolved. There was a few blips in editing for a couple of episodes, but that part's great. Now we're working on getting the video to be better, making sure that we're centered, making sure we're properly lit. But again, this is not meant to be a video show. We just like publishing this to YouTube because that's where people like to listen. They like to look up every now and then and see faces in front of them. But you're not meant to stare into our eyes for an hour or 30 minutes or however long. At least that's not how I intend the show to be watched whenever we record it this way. So just speaking for Andrew's sake, we're doing the best we can. We don't have a team of people making this podcast. It's literally I help record the show to give Andrew some backup, and he does all the editing and publishing. So 2-man team, and he's already got so many responsibilities. So just, give us a little bit of grace here and try to enjoy the show as much as you can. And we do provide links in the show notes to things we're talking about, so you can follow along if you want. But there just won't be a dedicated full editing team for a video component, not anytime soon anyway. If we get our viewership up and you guys keep listening, we can always prove to our bosses, like, hey, look, this thing's taking off, this thing's doing great. We can always put more time and money into it. It's just, right now, it's not feasible. So keep that in mind.
You know, Wes, I could look into my eyes for an hour. I think I could do it.
Oh, fair. I've been told by our commenters that I have a soulless stare, just unblinking.
Well,
just kind of like
when you're using a persona.
Yeah, like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Just full...
just
glassy deer eyes. Anyway, moving on. Let's dive into the show.
So much news this week. Let's start off with LifX that has been resurrected. They said they're going to be launching a bunch of new products, and now they have 2 additional new ones. We talked about this whole outdoor lineup that they had. 2 new bulbs launching. There's a standard A21 indoor bulb, LED, right? There's also a secondary par 38 bulb that is rated for outdoor use. These are full color light bulbs. When they are on the white side of the spectrum, these can get up to 1600 lumens, which is insane. They have some of the brightest bulbs out there. They are Matter over Wi-Fi, so they're going to work through Apple Home and all of that. You can pick up the A21 bulb. That's going to run you about $40, and the Par 38 bulb is going to be $35. So not terrible pricing here on these bulbs. They are Wi-Fi connected. I like these. I like these a lot. These are
Super
good
bright.
prices, more Matter stuff. I am very happy with what LifX has been doing.
I have Nanoleaf and Hue in my house, and those generally land in the dimmer spectrum. I'm not sure the exact lumen range, but I think we're talking under 1,000 lumens for a lot of these smart bulbs. So it's nice to see a nice bright one and fairly priced. I didn't really ever think about it before, but an outdoor bulb, I don't know if that's a different socket or something that they're building there. I've actually never thought of, like, can you actually put smart bulbs in a socket outside? I suppose as long as they're shielded from the elements, that might make sense. But sometimes you forget
there's two
there
different
are little
things you got to
computers.
worry about.
Yeah.
You have to worry first about making sure they don't get wet, right? Because
Mhm.
they do have to be like outdoor rated in that regard. But the secondary thing is LED bulbs can get hot. If you
Mhm.
remember some of the early Hue bulbs, those bases would burn after they were on for a while.
Right.
So if they are in some sort of outdoor enclosure, like a glass sconce, I think that would get too hot. And I probably would say don't do that.
I mean,
And especially if you're looking at something exceptionally bright, I would not want to enclose them. But that's why they have ones that are dedicated outdoor bulbs and outdoor fixtures that are just made to deal
right.
with those issues.
It's not something that you think about too much because, like, in the olden days when we had incandescent bulbs, you just put them everywhere. They're these little glass bulbs. But I've actually, as a child, set fire to things by having stuff too close to an incandescent bulb that's turned on. I don't think these get quite as hot, but still, it's a heat issue, especially around computer components, like connecting
You're
to
not
a
going to find
network.
an easy bake oven run by a new LED bulb. It's just not
Right.
going to work
No.
quite the same.
Probably a good thing
Well,
that doesn't work that way.
since we were talking about Hue is actually in the news this week because their app was updated to version 5.14, 514, and this brought support for home screen widgets, which is awesome. I think they also work in the lock screen as well. So lock screen and home screen widgets. So anything you want to do for scenes as well as like toggles, put them into widgets. There's small, medium, and large sizes of them that you can customize. Pretty great. I love seeing more companies add support for widgets now that they're actually interactive, thanks to recent versions of iOS. So great addition here. Make sure you have that app updated, and now you can finally add some interactive widgets if you're using Hue stuff, more specifically. There's other ones that just broad for HomeKit, but these are dedicated for Hue.
It's funny how long it takes some larger companies to take on Apple proprietary features. Like, we've had interactive widgets since at least September, and I understand Hue is a big company and has a lot of things going on, but they have a dedicated software team, and it took them this long. There were people on, because again, developers have since June to work on these things as well, so it's taken them almost a year to get this rolled out. I'll never understand that, especially since, like, as we know as Apple people, generally speaking, the people buying the iPhones tend to spend more money, so they're also more likely to buy smart home devices. They're more inclined to integrate these systems. So again, they should be pandering to that crowd, but I don't know. But it's not like they're going to Android first with features either. It's just why so slow on the uptake in software. It's a curious thing amongst a lot of large companies.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like little things like that. Like I keep asking for similar stuff from Dexcom, which makes the glucose monitors, and they have
Mhm.
this tight relationship with Apple, and yet they don't support half of the widget shapes or the complication shapes on Apple Watch. Like they support like two complication types, and they don't support the others. So there's like whole watch faces that I can't use if I want live CGM readings on my watch face. And like I have pressed them about this when I talked to them, and nothing. They're like, "Oh, we're
Right.
working on it," and I'm like, "It's a complication. Like I can't imagine how tough it is to
Yeah. I
support an
mean, of
additional
course, we're not
complication type when you already
developers.
support others."
Yeah, the biggest mistake as a non-developer, non-software engineer of any kind to say, how hard could it be? That's always the wrong thing to say. It's a bad idea. It brings me back to when the latest Pokemon games, the last couple of generations came out, and people were like, why aren't all 1020 Pokemon in this game? How hard could it be? All the 3D renders already exist. It's like, no, there's so many more things you have to do. That's why there's only 400 in this game, not over 1,000. And maybe that's Game Freak's fault for having so many Pokemon in the first place. But again, never tell a developer how hard can it be, because you have no idea unless you're doing it yourself. It's a lot of work to do. I
was a front end web developer, web designer, and I did app development, but I had never designed for Apple Watch, so I'm not sure, let alone dealing with health data and pulling that from the health app. So I don't know how their data structures work. But when you've already designed for some complications, why not design for the others? And similar thing here for Hue, it's a widget. Everyone has come out with widgets. They seem to be pretty quick to turn around. There are so many available for just launch. It's taken like a year to be able to bring support. So regardless, I'm glad they are here. Before we get into all of these robot vacuum cleaners to talk about this week, let's take our first break to thank our first sponsor, ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like not paying attention to the safety demonstration on a flight. Most of the time, you're probably fine, but what if one day that weird yellow mask drops down from overhead and you have no idea what to do? It's better safe than sorry. ExpressVPN acknowledges that hackers can make up to $1,000 by selling personal information on the dark web. Basically, if you don't know what an Express or a VPN does, is it passes your web traffic through these secure servers that can mask your location, your browsing data, your passwords, your financial information, all of this stuff, and keeps it protected. Especially when you are out and about, you are traveling, you're using some unscrupulous public free Wi-Fi that you have no idea who is kind of peeping in on what you are doing online. So ExpressVPN is one of the premier VPN providers out there. And what I also love as an Apple user, they were one of the very first ones to launch a dedicated Apple TV app when Apple added VPN support natively to the Apple TV through tvOS. They were one of the first ones. So easy to do. Open up the app, click one button, automatically connected. They have tons of servers and locations that you can choose from. There's dedicated apps for multiple platforms. Use it on your phone, laptops, iPads, your Apple TV, basically everything in your house. I use a VPN all the time. 100%. I just feel better knowing that there is far less risk of my data being collected out there. So here's what you guys should do. So secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/HKI. That's expressvpn.com/HKI. And you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/HKI. So first piece of robotic vacuum cleaner news, iRobot has 2 new Roomba models. Wes, these things, these are priced below $300, which That's I think is crazy. For one, what a good robotic vacuum cleaner typically costs, and two, for Roomba, they have always been a fairly, higher end of the market, one of the big ones here. And now there's a $275 Roomba Combo Essentials that includes the mop and the vacuum. And then there's a secondary version that is even cheaper. I think it's like $249 that doesn't have the mop. So just the vacuum side of things. I think this is very cool. I mean, these are great prices on solid Robovacs.
Yeah, these are great, and iRobot has a good history of having decent enough room mapping capabilities, and maybe they're not using as much intelligence as their higher-end models in these ones, but it's all good enough now that even for a $250 vacuum cleaner, it's good enough. I would say if you're in an apartment and you have all carpeted floors, you don't need a mop, right? So get the Roomba with just a vacuum, and it can just chug around. And honestly, I've seen vacuum cleaners, the stick handle ones, get up to $1,000. I've seen regular vacuums with a giant bag on the back get up to $100+ This isn't that much of a stretch that now the general consumer can dive right into robotic vacuums. I think that's really cool. That's cheaper than a HomePod.
It is. I remember it was like probably 5 years ago now when robot vacuum cleaners were starting to get a little more popular again. And I was getting a ton of review requests from these no name companies. They were very just, I wouldn't even say they were mid. They were just very meh. Not even mid. They were meh. And now that we're getting like
Terrible.
Roombas, legit Roombas for $250, this is where I would be. I probably wouldn't spend less than 250 if I was looking for just a cheap entry level Roomba. This is probably where I would be looking. Like, I think that's a great price from a very well respected company.
Mm-hmm.
I am happy with this. They say this has 20 times the suction power as the models before it, and you can expect up to 2 hours on a single charge there, which is not bad at all. Now, these are not going to have, as Wes said, kind of the bells and whistles you see from the higher end units. Like, they may not have the AI stuff, I don't think. They don't have like empty wash fill docking stations that we'll be talking about here. But for vacuuming hands free, 250. Great. These are launching select retailers in the US on the 7th, and then they'll be launching in Canada on the 12th. So coming out very soon. I wanted to drop a plug for my own video because we just had it was sponsored, so I will say that, but I will also say how impressed I was with this one. It's the Eufy S1 Pro. Did you happen to watch my video on this one, Wes?
I haven't seen the video, but I saw the review go up and I scanned over it, and this looks like a pretty impressive model.
I was really impressed with this thing. What's really funny is there's a lot of things that make this unique. First up, the docking station is crazy. They went really skinny and tall. So it's like easy to get to without like you're not even bending over. There's a touch screen on the top that you can start it, change modes, all of that. The water tanks are on the top, so you're again not bending down to get to the water tanks. They made the clean water tank semi-transparent so you can see how much water is in there. I have left my house so many times and then like, oh, I should run the vacuum, and I'll go to start like the Roborock or something, and then it'll be, oh, I'm out of water. I'm like,
Right.
I wish I knew
Should have
before
told me.
I left. Because it would have like enough not to be low, and then it like refills. It's like, can't do it. So this having like that transparent water tank makes such a big deal because I can just see it right there. What's in there? There's also like the fluid goes into the middle and it automatically mixes it. They say it creates ionized water. I don't know much about that, but they say it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff super cool. The vacuum itself has a roller mop, which is bonkers, and it looks like
long.
a paint roller.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on the bottom, and they actually flush it with clean water while it's mopping. So they sent all these footages of different robots with different mop styles, like the spinning ones and vibrating ones, and how the mop gets dirty and can still move stuff around. But with this roller mop, as it rolls, it lifts up the particles, scrubs it off, and cleans it with like hot, clean, ionized water from the top, then collects that water and puts it into the dirty water tank. And so you're always cleaning your floor with a clean mop. And for my like video, I was like throwing peanut butter on the ground, which
God.
to me has been one of the hardest things to clean up because it's so sticky. And the mop, it just like one time over it and it's gone. So I was impressed.
You're braver than me. I've reviewed a couple of these robot vacuum mop things, and I know you go on YouTube and you see people, all right, here's the cookies, here's the cereal, here's, like you said, sauces, peanut butter. I'm just like, that just feels wrong to me because now the robot has some gunk in it, and I'm gonna probably have to go take it apart and clean it out later because it's just filling up with peanut butter. It scares me to think it's like, I feel like I need to clean up for my robot, and you're saying that's not the case with these newer models?
I mean, there's always going to be extremes, right? But no, I threw tomato sauce on the ground and I ran over it with first the Eufy S1 Pro, and I did it with a competitor's robot that I had on hand that used a different style mop. And when that one went over it, I could actually see the streaks of the pasta sauce that it took with it, and I was like, I've never, because I don't usually have that many spills. I'm using mine primarily for like maintenance cleaning, like every day
Right.
or couple days, going around keeping the floors clean, not necessarily cleaning up after a big spill. And I've never felt super comfortable doing that. And my other robot actually, it went and it turned around on my rug and it drug pasta sauce on my rug,
That's
and
not
I
good.
got a stain there now, which that
Right.
was more of my issue than the robot. So I was really impressed. And then when the Eufy S1 Pro went over it, it just picked it all up.
I
One
mean,
swipe through, the pasta sauce was gone.
for me, I still think in my head, unless for some reason maybe a cat knocks something off the counter and you're not home and you don't want to leave it there, and maybe you're on a trip and your family's not going to be there to feed the cat for another day, and it would be awful to leave on the ground. I could see a situation like that where, sure, let's let the robot do the work. But if I'm ever home and something disastrous happens that needs cleaned up immediately, I'll probably go and manually clean it and then let the robot go do the touch ups, run over it with the cleaning solution and polish the floor and all that. But it just, for me,
I would pick up chunks.
I've always
like
been
a dishwasher.
skittish. Yeah. Yeah. It's not,
You should scrape and then dishwasher and let it do the rest. That's how I feel about this. I'm gonna pick up a chunk.
Maybe you have $2,000 laying around just to buy new vacuum cleaners every couple months because you keep filling them up with peanut butter and tomato sauce. But I don't know that I would trust it that much. And again, this isn't anything against the companies. I'm just, again, it's just like you watch like you said, dishwasher. You watch the dishwasher video of someone putting an entire chocolate cake in the dishwasher and then not being there after this wash cycle. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. you go ahead, but I'm not going to trust technology that much anyway. But so this does sound really interesting. I've never seen a roller on a vacuum mop, so that's cool.
Yeah, so I was really happy with it. I saw a few other. It looks like they had done a few other campaigns. So like this part here is not sponsored. Like everything we're talking about now, they did not pay me to say it. They paid me to say what's in the video. So you can always take that for what it's worth. But yeah, they're generally my complete honest opinions on these types of things. So I was surprised, and I had talked to a couple other YouTubers on Twitter that also were doing sponsored videos, and they're like, yeah, this thing actually works pretty well. So. We'll see if it stays in my regular lineup, my army of robots. I'm just gonna have a whole wall of robots and send them out one by one and see who does a better job.
I've asked you this before, but remind me, you live in a 2-level house, right? So do you have a upstairs robot and a downstairs robot?
Eventually. Right now, our basement is our lower level, and it's like half finished. So it's waterproofed and like other things like that, but it's not fully livable. So we have some areas, but I'll use like the mini one from SwitchBot in my studio because it's a smaller space and can go under desks and things. But as far as like the main lower level, eventually we will be there. Right.
I have a vacuum mop upstairs and we have carpet downstairs. So I have just a Shark vacuum downstairs, but we actually ended up relegating that to the unfinished basement because my girlfriend just said, you know what, I prefer to vacuum myself. I was like, okay, I'll let you do that then. But yeah, these things are definitely interesting little pieces of technology. And just back to this guy, how much is the Eufy S1 Pro versus that $250 vacuum cleaner? I'm sure it's up there in price.
Let's see. It's actually less than I thought. So they did launch it on Kickstarter. So like the biggest deals, I believe, are gone. They just raised $2.5 million, by the way, on Kickstarter. $2.5 million.
A lot of companies are doing this. Like I feel like it was a thing for a moment, but it's more and more. It's keyboards, vacuum cleaners. So many of these, they're established companies, but they're using Kickstarter to, I guess, as an advertising campaign. And I think it's really smart. I think that's cool.
So $1,000 is looks like what the early bird pricing is on this. Yeah, so I don't think that's terrible at all.
Considering what we just discussed, right? Like you're paying 4 times more, but it sounds like it does more than 4 times more work. Like especially with that roller brush, if it's able to do as much as it says it does, you're getting your money's worth for sure.
Yeah, so pretty interesting bot. But we have one more to talk about. But before we do, one more break. You guys know him. I love him. It is Shopify. That's right. Whether you are building a website or whether you are shopping on one, everyone's going to benefit from Shopify. And I know I mentioned this before. A major retailer that I work with every once in a while just moved their whole website to Shopify, which has been crazy just hearing about it and how nice that move has been. But just to go back and talk about Shopify, there's so many great things about it. So as far as a customer experience goes, it's very easy to be able to see things in your cart, complete that checkout process. It supports things like Apple Pay and Google Pay and PayPal all right there. So it's easy to take those new payment methods, and I don't have to worry about pulling out my credit card, or you can use like your shop access, which is also super easy. And they'll just like text you a code. And then once you complete your purchase, everything is kicked over into the shop app for tracking. I can see all of my order, I placed it, I can see when it shipped, I can see tracking information, see it delivered, I can leave reviews on it afterward. It's wonderful to be able to use on a customer side, but it's also great on the development side, on the store side, because it scales so easily. Whether you are a small company or you are a massive company, Shopify can easily be tailored to your needs. They also have these other great things, like the fact that they turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to other leading e-commerce platforms. They also have they can say they can help you sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI powered all-star. They say they power 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and they are the ones behind Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen. They power all those sites, and they have entrepreneurs in over 175 different countries. They have tons of resources to help you every step of the way. So here is what you guys should do. You guys should sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/HomeKit, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/HomeKit now to grow your business no matter what stage you are in. Shopify.com/HomeKit. As always, thank you, Shopify, for sponsoring this episode. I know I say it every time, but I really appreciate when websites use Shopify instead of some really sketchy looking payment system. It just makes me, I just know it's like secure. I know it's safe. Like I can be a sketchy looking website, but as soon as they kick me over to Shopify, I'm like, oh, everything's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and buy what I was looking at. Anyway, speaking of things that I want to buy, Wes, the Roborock S8 MaxV Ultra announced at CES.
I think they're running out of like adjectives and descriptors to add to the ends of these things. Ultra Max Pro.
I don't understand the breakdown in the Roborock lineup of bots, because there's the Qavo QEVO series, which I think are more affordable. And then there's all these different versions of their flagship vacuums. Like there's like the S7, S7 Pro, S7 Max Ultra, S7 Max V Ultra, and then there's the S8, the S8 Pro. And I think the one I reviewed last year, like the S8 Pro, and now it's I don't understand why this is the S8 Max V Ultra, because they're sticking with the S8 line in there. That's the same, but the vacuum has changed and the docking station has changed. So I don't know.
They have a brand that works, I guess.
All I know is that this is their highest end flagship model. That's what I can say confidently. So what is new on this model? As a refresher from CES, first, they added a little flexi arm. They added a tiny little arm with a little spinner on it that as the robot goes into a corner, it'll stick the arm out and clean the floor under toe lips. It'll get under in corners that it couldn't reach before. Like you're going to have the highest coverage. I can't say that confidently, but you're going to have a very good coverage in terms of what this vacuum and mop is able to get. I saw this at CES and it was really neat just to see it go into a corner and this little arm come out, clean the area, and then move on its way. So that's the first new feature.
So
they also have a
wake word. Is this a wake word? Hey, Rocky.
Yeah. They have an onboard assistant called Hey Rocky. And you can do all the things you could do with an onboard assistant, send it out, do all that stuff, right? And this is going to be more powerful than baking it into things like Siri, because you'd have to use shortcuts. And even when you go through something like Matter, it's very limited in what it can do. With Hey Rocky, you can actually say, like, come here. And it should come to you and clean where you're standing. So, like, if you're in the kitchen and your kid just threw a whole pile of honey mustard on the floor, I could say, hey, Rocky, come clean this. And it'll come out from where it is, come over to me, and clean the mess on the floor.
So it's more like a pet than a robot vacuum. I mean,
basically,
depending on what you drop on the floor, I just call the dog over and say, hey, take care of this.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So that's very cool. They have a redesigned dock. It is more compact than before. The tanks no longer are like prominently on top. They're more hidden now, including, like, they're still on top, but they're a little bit more hidden than they were before. And the dust bin is no longer on the top as well. That's actually hidden on the front behind a new magnetic panel. Plus, they did what the S1 Pro did, and they built in a spot where you just put in the detergent and it'll automatically mix for you, so you don't have to do that. I hated mixing the detergent because when you put soap into water and then you try to fill it, the whole thing just foamed up. Like, it took me 20 minutes to wait for the foam to dissipate and then to refill it again. And if I put it in at the end, which I know is what you're thinking, then it doesn't get like mixed. Like, I feel like I just put it's going to like settle and it's not sufficiently mixed if I put the detergent in at the end. So now they just handle it for you and mix all the detergent. So that's all taken care of for you.
From what you're describing, it sounds like, because I've actually had two cleaners do this. There's a little pocket in the station where you put a detergent bottle and it just mixes the water for you. Yeah, that's nice.
Yes.
I don't have to think about that every time I refill the tank. That's definitely very handy.
Exactly. And if you have the ability, you can get an even smaller docking station that can tie in to your water line. So you can actually tie this directly into your water line and it'll supply fresh water and drain the old water out. Wes, you do not know how tempted I am to cut into my kitchen cabinets and make a tiny little robot house that I could just hide the docking station in, tie it into the water lines, and have it just completely out of sight. And then just come out when it needs to and go back away. They showed like a mocked up, not a mocked up version, a real version of that in a faux kitchen at CES. And like, that looks so
That's really cool,
sleek.
This little house, it's like the Jetsons. The thing just comes out of the wall, it cleans. There you go.
Pretty much. So I like really the idea, that. Especially if different options.
Mine's in the living room right now, but that would be tempting to like get it closer to the sink so you can take advantage of just the sink inlet water. And yeah, I could see that being really cool as an option. Definitely like would design an entire kitchen around that, to be honest.
Yeah. And then finally, the last new feature here to tout. Well, they also increased the suction. It's like 10,000 pascals of suction, which is nuts. I believe,
fancy,
if I'm remembering that correctly. A lot of suction. I think it's like it went from like 6,000 to now 10.
Yeah, I've seen robots with 7,000, 8,000, so 10 definitely sounds impressive.
Yes. And the way that I know, like, that I feel good about it is when I like clean Harrison's room, which has carpet, you see the lines on the carpet. Like as if I had taken my big Dyson and went through. Like, you actually looking like, dang, this room looks nice. I have like this nice manicured floor. I dig it. So like, I feel like it's got good section to really change the orientation of the carpet in the room. But last new feature, Matter support. Now, Apple has not added Matter support, as far as we know, for vacuums, because that came in the Matter 1.2 spec that we talked about copiously a couple episodes back with the CSA. But when Apple does add Matter support, this will be supported there. So that'll be very cool. You'll be able to see it in the Home app. You'll be able to use Apple's Assistant to send it out. All that kind of stuff. I have a
feeling this is... We've talked about it before, and we could do an entire episode on this, but iOS 18 has a lot of promise here, especially with Matter evolving the way it has. If we're adding robot vacuums to the Home app, please, Apple, give us the ability to see a map of our home inside of the Apple Home app and tell it where to clean and all of it. Like, bring the apps into the Apple Home app. Like, as much as it's fine, I've used these manufacturer
apps. That's on the
CSA. it's on them, but it's on Apple too to implement it, right? Because if it's in the Matter system right now, to at least bring them up and vacuum it.
It's not in the Matter spec.
Oh, no? I thought it was.
Rooms are not. Vacuums are in there, right. But like that part is what's not supported. So right now we're going to get mode, suction power, return to dock.
At least it's better than an on-off switch, stuff. Right?
Yeah, it's better than that, and it's more. And you don't have to set up individual shortcuts. But you can't say, even with Matter, you can't say go clean the living room.
Right.
That part isn't connected yet, and that's what I talked about with the CSA of like you need to find that way to match a physically, a LiDAR scanned 3D space that you're drawing and sectioning into zones and mapping those to these virtual zones that you've created in the Home app. You need to match those together.
I feel like it's a chicken egg problem here because the companies probably need access to data that they don't have, and Apple needs to give customers the ability to make that data. They need to meet in the middle. Like Apple needs to create an API that says
Apple can do here because Apple already has the rooms, and Apple doesn't have any way to get a 3D map of your house. Like it doesn't, unless you're going to use your phone and map it with LiDAR. Apple doesn't have a way for you to do that. So,
well, that's what I was getting at. Is that this seems like a cooperation issue of. Yes, it's not there yet, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, how do you get this implemented? Well, you would need Google and Apple at a system level to allow vacuums to pass their LiDAR maps to Apple Maps, right? Like, it's a two-way street. And having them, they already have the maps in the apps, right? So you need to be able to get that back to Apple Home. Yes, it's not in the Matter spec yet, but how do we get it in the Matter spec without Apple and Google participating? And they're part of the Matter group, so I would see this cooperation happening. That's the only reason why I bring it up, as it's an everyone issue. They all need to be working on this. It can't just be.
I think they will, but Apple can't work on it on its own. I think this does have to start with the CSA and Matter. They need to add it first, and then Apple can implement it on the Apple Home side. Like you said, they're part of CSA, so they will work with the other members to do it. But Apple already has the rooms, and it can't collect the data. It needs to get it from Matter. It needs to get it from that Robovac. So Matter needs to start this next part.
I'll let you wrap up real quick on Roborock, because we have a good segue from this about Apple and robots we can cover real quick.
Okay, so I'm sure you're all wondering, when is the Roborock S8 MaxV Ultra available? Well, they have announced that it is coming out April 22nd, and they have a wild deal. We're not getting paid for this, but they have a great launch bonus here. So the robot itself is $1,800, very much on the high end of the market, not the highest end, but very much on the high end of the market. But if you are going to pre-order it, you get a 5-year warranty plan. You get replacement side brushes, edge mops, washable filters, mop cloths, all for free, like an accessory package. And then you get a complimentary Flexi Light wet dry vacuum. Like that's literally
just an entire other vacuum. That's funny.
You get a whole separate vacuum. That's their handheld one that you can go, and it's a vacuum and a mop that you can do yourself. So you get all of those bundled in if you pre-order or order the S8 MaxV Ultra. Now we've given you guys a whole host of options, from entry-level Roombas to mid-tier, upper mid-tier, budget but very powerful eufy S1 Pro, and now we're talking about the S8 MaxV Ultra with its fanciness. I have not tested this out yet, so I can't vouch for it, but we've tested the other ones and they've always been exceptional. So I'm very curious of what everyone thinks about these Robovacs. And not saying Wes is going to promote this or tout this in any way, but I know you want to talk about one more really quick.
Well, yes, that and an Apple thing, but I think we can squeeze it all in. I am actually testing the Narwhal Frio Ultra, I think is the name. Anyway, it's their new fancy one, and it's cool. We've discussed a lot of this similar functions. I really like the dock on this one. It actually, the vacuum goes inside of it. It's not a external ramp the whole thing, the washing station is inside of the machine, which was different from a Dreamy Home model that I reviewed before. So I'm liking it. Early days. It's doing a really good job cleaning my floors. It's one of those moments where you can look at the floor and say it has been cleaned, right? Rather than it just drying and being like, well, it's kind of still a floor. So it's definitely doing a good job with my home. But I have noticed one weird little thing, and maybe someone out there knows what I might be needing to do here to fix this. And when it maps my home, my top floor is a big circular level. You can walk around in circles, right? So you go from the living room to the dining room to the kitchen to a hallway back to the living room without ever encountering a door. The vacuum thinks that's one big room, and there's no way to fix it. You go in the app and you can say split rooms, and it gives you these terrible, it might just be the app's fault. Maybe they need to do an update. It gives you these terrible little guides that you can do to cut the room in pieces, but it doesn't let you cut the room based on the shape of the room. You have to go from one wall to the other. And for some reason, the vacuum does not recognize the middle wall as a wall. It just doesn't, it sees it as furniture or something. I don't know what it's doing. So yeah, I'm in a conundrum. So right now I can't say go clean the living room because everything is the living room. It's a good vacuum. And again, like my situation's fine because the entire top floor is one big room. So I can just tell it to go clean everything, and I'm okay with that. But again, and you can do zone cleaning. You can just go say, make a square on the map and say, go clean this zone. So again, you can get around it. It's just now I lose the ability to create shortcuts to say, go clean just the kitchen. Like I can't do that. And that's a little bit of a miss, but it'll all be in the review. I think that'll be out in sometime in May, and we'll discuss it on the show. I just wanted to bring that up. Have you encountered stuff like that before?
No, never.
Yeah.
But maybe it's like your specific house layout, but especially if you haven't had it happen with the Dreamy one,
The
then it
Dreamy one did
sounds like
fine.
it's a narwhal specific issue here. Like you said, at least you can assign zones and still run it that way. But that's kind of annoying. It just sounds like they need to do an app.
I'll email their team and just be like, hey, maybe it's something they've overlooked, because again, okay, I know I'm not unique here. There's plenty of homes that have a upper level that's a big circle. So I don't know. They must have missed something in their development, but we'll see. Anyway, one last little bit. We're running into the end of our show here. I wanted to bring up something from the Apple Insider side of things. There's a rumor that after Apple Card got destroyed, something rose from the ashes. The Apple Robotics team is now a thing at Apple, and they could be working on a robot companion. And the reason why this is interesting to me and why it's in HomeKit Insider is because when you say home robot, we all immediately go to Roombas, right? Robot vacuum cleaners. And I want to say, Andrew, if Apple, and they're not, the rumor is that they're going to make a home vacuum, but would you buy an Apple-made home robot vacuum?
I mean, there's a whole lot of things that would need to be answered before I just said yes. But
the Apple logo's not enough for you?
The Apple logo is not enough, but I will say, like, Apple's history typically is. Like, they don't just jump into things or do things without kind of having a reason or doing something better or different than before. So, like, if Apple thought this was a product that needed to exist, and they also tend to target, as far as their market goes, like the high-end consumer, but not the upper echelon of consumers. Like,
not
they're
a Ferrari.
trying to do, they're doing like just above, whatever the average market price is, 10, 20% or something above that. They're not doing 10 times that. So I don't know what the market price is for a vacuum or for a robot like this, but their audience always is your average consumer, just spending a little bit more. They're not selling things to, just Bill Gates or Elon Musk, like billionaires. So that, to me, it just says, okay, if it's going to be a consumer level product that Apple thinks needs to exist and has a maybe high but fair price tag, I could see doing it.
Nothing is on the shelf for products yet. This is still research and development phases. But one of the things they are promoting, what's been rumored is the robotics team is working on a robot companion that would follow you around or even be autonomous and wander around the home. And the Moonshot project, and we're talking a decade from now. So this is a preview for a future episode of HomeKit Insider in 2034. This could be a robot that would do chores for you, like straighten up things around the house, put away toys, fold laundry, do dishes. That's the goal, the Moonshot goal that they have. And so everyone's mind immediately goes to like the Tesla robot, which is also more than a decade away at minimum. Bipedal robots are very hard to do, and there's a whole thing. So could this be a little guy on treads, like we see at some restaurants or security detail some college campuses? Who knows? It's interesting that Apple is even investing in the field. I'm happy to see them reach out away from computers. It makes sense that they're here. And I think it has big implications for the home, which, we're HomeKit Insider. And one of the things that came up from this rumor, just to close, is this was from Mark Gurman at Bloomberg. It was that Apple had 3 tenets that they were focusing on in the future of their platforms. And that was the car, automotive, the home, and spatial computing or virtual reality, which is Apple Vision Pro. Well, if the car is gone and Vision Pro has been released and we're seeing a pipeline form there, that means the home is one of their, I guess now 2 tent poles. I don't know if you can have 2 tent poles and build a tent, but the fact that home is such an important deal, I wonder that if that means we're going to see a lot more commitment from Apple soon, because so far, and you echo this sentiment, Andrew. So far, I feel like Apple's home side of things has been more of a project, kind of a hobby, kind of like how they described the Apple TV before the Apple TV 4 came out. So maybe we'll see our Apple TV 4 moment in the next year or 2. I'm hoping so anyway.
Yeah, and besides the chores aspect of like doing laundry, like that's a whole thing, right? It's not easy.
It's a lot
to do. That's not even close.
Mm-hmm. I discussed this on the Apple Insider podcast. The only way I could see this being feasible, and this sounds, again, very Apple, is if they create an ecosystem of products. So you buy our robot, but now you have to buy our pet feeder, our dishwasher, our oven, our refrigerator, so the robot knows how to interact with it. If you use anyone else's appliances, it will no longer understand it well enough to interact with it. So you'll lose that interaction standpoint. So the more things you buy from us or our partners, in our appliance ecosystem for our automatic robot, it's crazy to say, the more it does. So yeah, if you buy our pet feeder, our robot can roll up to that pet feeder, fetch the water and go fill it up, stuff like that. If you have anyone else, it can't do that. So this sounds like an ecosystem play. This sounds very Apple in its implementation. Again, we're more than a decade away from hearing anything about this, but I'm excited about the idea that Apple could get more serious. And in the meantime, before robots, at the very least, that means Apple could get more serious about the home in the short term. And that's good enough for me.
Besides the chores, I originally thought about it something like this that I just sent you, which is the Samsung Ballie. And it is an AI companion that I love. Right. They showed this at CES this year. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it reminds me of like Weibo from Flubber, but it's a ball that follows you around the house, and it can do things like project things on the floor into different surfaces. You can take phone calls with it. It can answer questions and play music and do all these different things. And it's basically a follow you around the house AI companion to help do stuff.
It's a HomePod on wheels with a projector. I mean, and not to dismiss I think it's a cool product, but in a world where we have smartwatches, iPhones, HomePods, Apple TVs, everything's strewn about us already. What use is another Siri device that just follows you around, that all it really does is listen to your Siri commands that already work on the HomePod? But I mean, it
can be a security device. You could definitely pitch it as doing much more than
go check on the pets, and it rolls over to the pet and said, here's the dog, I found it for you. Like that's cool. Like I like that idea.
I want to tell it to follow around Harrison, and then
there you go.
It'll just make sure that he doesn't get into trouble. And all of a sudden, like Harrison's going under the bathroom sink, and my robot's like, Andrew, your child, and I can, come grab him. But there's things that these things could
Some
do,
cool
and
things.
this I could see as a more feasible short-term robotic companion that could do stuff. But like, I don't see like a 4 foot tall, a 6 foot
No.
tall Apple animatronic that is walking around folding clothes and doing all this other stuff. It's a whole other
Not
thing.
anytime soon. The technology and the price range just is not there.
I mean, if this is like a 20-year thing, then perhaps, but
we'll let you know in 2050.
perfect, because we'll doing episode 900.
I don't even know the math there.
800.
Are we actually
No
on HomeKit Insider 200? Happy anniversary, Andrew. I mean, I guess we didn't really do anything special to celebrate, but hey, look, 200 episodes. That's actually an accomplishment in a world where most podcasts last 4 episodes. So I think we're doing pretty well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to round out the episode with a quick hands-on brand new product. I talked about it last week. Right here, I've got it. The Snap Plus wireless charging event mount from Mophie. This guy, Qi2, one of the initial, very early Qi2 chargers. I think IoT also has one out. ESR may have one out. Now we have the one from Mophie Zag. It's got a black body to it. I kind of tend to like the black car adapters because they do just stay a little bit more subtle in the car versus other ones that are like bright white and kind of stick out on your dash because no dashes are white. So this I think blends in really well. It's a vent mount. So on the back, you can see we have this little hook. If you're watching on the video side of things, it's a little hook that comes out. It's metal and it twists on the back and that extends. You can hear the clicking on the audio, but that hook is extending out the back and then it goes behind your blade and then you tighten it down to secure it in place. And it's got this big over guard that presses up against your blades and really locks it into place. So this does not move. Yep. I put this in the car. It really stays put. You also have a ball and pivot joint there, so you can adjust the angle of it. As an added bonus, in the box, they include a offset arm. So you can attach it to the vent, put it on the offset arm, and move it to the side. So move it like above your steering wheel or just not in front of the vent so it doesn't overheat. So that's included in the box. They also include a USB-C to USB-C cable in the box. They include 2 cable management clips. They're little silicone, look at cable clips. And they're black and they just adhesive onto your car and you can clip the cable into them so it stays out of the way. I love that they include those in the box. And then you get a 30-watt USB-C power adapter for your car. But other than that, this is exactly what you'd expect is a Qi2 car charger, 15 watts of power for your iPhone, which now includes all the way back to the iPhone 12. So iPhone 12, 13, 14, and 15 series all can use this for up to 15 watts of power. Magnetically connects. All good things about it. Nothing particularly exciting, but I think people get very specific about how these mount and what they like. So I do like they include the offset arm and this really secure clip in the back. Boom.
Yep. Fancy. I think it's pretty cool.
Fancy. If you're looking for a car charger, looking for, because to be honest, there's like what, one MagSafe one? Is there even 2 MagSafe ones?
Yeah, I think the Belkin one's the only official MagSafe, and the rest of them are 7.5 watts. It doesn't matter how fancy they look; they're all standard wireless charging.
ESR also has a MagSafe one, and the ESR one is actually actively cooled. Which is great
with the little fan. Yeah,
yeah. So did Belkin actually ever make an official MagSafe one? Because they had a mount.
Oh. I can't remember. Oh, maybe it's just the mount and not a charger. That's right. I'm not entirely sure about that one, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking. Nope, they did, I think. Belkin Boost Charge Pro wireless car charger with MagSafe. So they did eventually release the car charger version. That's $90. And then
expensive.
ESR also has one. So there's maybe 2 or 3.
I'll always argue, though, you don't need... I mean... It's nice that now you can get 15 watts in the car, but you don't need 15 watts.
Need it. Nah. I'm going to argue not only do you need it, it makes more sense in the car than anywhere else.
Yeah, you think? I mean, I just don't think CarPlay, even wireless CarPlay, you're not draining the battery enough to need it. And unless you're getting in the car and your phone's dead, then yeah, if you find that happening a lot, that's a good utility to have. But I don't find that happening a lot.
If you need your phone charged, you're getting in the car and you're like, man, I need my phone charged. I would rather have 15 watts than 7.5 watts. And I bet most people are taking short trips, 20, 25 minutes in their car. Why would you want to charge at half the speed when you have a limited time to charge your phone? If I'm going to get in the car and drive 10 minutes down the road, if I'm charging 7.5 watts, I'm going to get a couple percentage points, and I can get a good 10% at least using a MagSafe one. Or sorry, 15 watts, MagSafe for Qi2. I have to have 15 watts of car charging because it's so short that if you're doing 7.5 watts, at that point, it's like, why bother? It's not fast enough to even do anything.
To wrap up the show, I want to hurt Andrew's feelings. I'm going to say, all right, so if everyone listening here has an iPhone 15 and you have a wireless car charger in your car and you're desperate, you're at 20%, you only have 10 minutes to charge your phone. Well, let me tell you a secret. Most of those car adapters in the car have an output of about 30 watts, depending on which one you buy. So get a nice one, and it plugs directly into the wireless charging base, correct? Unplug that cable, stick your phone to the wireless charging pad, and plug the cable directly in your phone. It's still magnetically mounted, but it's wired, getting 30 watts. So you've doubled it yet again, and you'll actually get a percentage in that 15 minutes. I know it hurts you, Andrew, to hear about someone plugging in their phone.
I don't want to plug things in.
Right. I'm saying if you're desperate, you can. It's a good way to do it. But just if you've never thought of that before,
keep a spare cable in there and do it. But
that too. But if you've never thought of it before, maybe I just blew your mind. But that is something you can totally do. Just steal the cable from the charger itself, plug it directly into your phone, and you've just doubled your charging speed. Just not to take away from the MagSafe magic, but yeah.
At that point, you are sticking with a 20 watt or a 7.5 watt charger, which is probably using like a 10 or 15 watt power adapter. Mm-hmm. So at that point,
no, again, even with the 15 watt charger,
if you go with the Qi2, then you have it. Yeah.
No, so, even with the 15 watt,
you only got it. Yeah. But you only got that because you got the Qi2 charger.
That's fair.
That's fine. Well, if anyone's interested, there's a link for it in the show notes. They got a couple more Qi2 chargers coming out soon that I already mentioned. So that is it for this episode. We made it under an hour, but just barely. So sorry we dragged on so much about robotic vacuum cleaners. Right. It's clearly a topic of things right now. Yeah. We do. So if anyone has any questions, be sure to let me know. You can reach me. My email, andrew@appleinsider.com. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew_OSU, and you can ask me questions, send me DMs there, and I'll do my best to answer them in upcoming episodes. Wes, you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
It's the Robot Insider podcast. No, I'm on Mastodon, Hilly Tech everywhere, honestly. If you just find me on Mastodon, I'm always there. Twitter, I'll respond. If you tag me, you can find my email at the top of any article I've written. Just reach out if you have any questions or want to make any comments about the show. And of course, you can always find me on the Apple Insider podcast with William every week. And those come out on Fridays. So as you're listening to this, there's a new episode a couple days ago. We talk more about robots and everything going on with Apple and that nonsense, rumors and just the usual, of course. If you haven't listened to the show before, give it a try. We have a lot of fun over there. So.
Awesome. And thank you to everybody for 200 amazing episodes of HomeKit Insider. It's absolutely crazy that we've done 200 episodes of this show. So sincerely, thank you to everybody. If you want to watch the video version of this with or without overlaid images, you can find it on youtube.com/HomeKit Insider. Otherwise, give us a 10-star review in the podcast app of choice. And we'll catch you in the next episode.